Let's welcome in, kicking off the 8 o'clock hour. Welcome in, Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show. All right, season's over, 6-6. Friday night is over. Twitter meltdowns are over, I would hope. I think we got to move on from what happened on Friday night. We got 361 days before Nebraska and Iowa will play again. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing, you know what? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I want to start here because 6-6, your record is who you are. Some people will doubt that. Others are in agreement with me, but I think this was a average football team that had a different vibe in the last 3 weeks. Do you think that the record at 6-6 reflects the performance for the 2024 version of Nebraska football?
I think that's a very good question, and I guess I have to say yes. Just because, I mean, when you take it at 6-6, exactly 500, we had a great start to the year and then a pretty crappy finish to the year. So I do think that 6-6 is a direct reflection on how we are. It just seemed to be a very inconsistent year, in my opinion, and I guess 6-6 is where we're at right now.
Is there momentum? Is there a part of the program that has momentum, you think, that'll go into a bowl game with practices and probably play a fairly good opponent?
I sure hope so. I do think so, but it's hard for me to say definitively, I guess, just because I felt like we definitely had the momentum, and I feel like even if we would have lost on Friday, they're still having that momentum potentially, but it's the way that they lost again that kind of gets me, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
It's heartbreaking fashion again, doing it to yourself, but I do definitely think there is some real momentum. It definitely seems to have the potential to be a very good recruiting week for Matt Rule. That seems to be something that kind of trending in that direction. I definitely think if we can get Dana Holgorsen locked up, long term, I think that would be a good momentum builder. And I do think there is momentum. Going to a bowl game is something that this program has needed. And for the extra practices and all that, and just to get that kind of stigma out of there. So I do think there is positive momentum, but that's a thing. I don't know that for sure. A week ago, I felt like there definitely was. Now I'm just feeling like there probably is.
Isn't this an interesting switch? Because the defense, you can't waste a defensive performance like that from Friday night. But what we're talking about with some potential flips are offensive guys, and Dana Holgorsen shows up. So the momentum would be on offense where probably the strength of this team was on defense. Doesn't that seem a little odd? I'm not saying you're wrong because I agree with you, but doesn't it seem a little odd if you're answering the question of momentum going into the offseason?
No, I definitely agree with you. It is a little odd. And next season, it's weird. I would be a little bit more worried about the defense. I guess we'll see what happens with Tony White going forward. But yeah, I do agree with you. That is a little bit odd because it seems like all the momentum right now is with the offense, in my opinion.
Let's talk about the defense. What'd they do so well, except for a 72-yard touchdown pass?
Yeah, that is, like you said, wasting such a great defensive effort. That is what has been mega frustrating for me personally, is my big key to the game has just been hey, control the line of scrimmage. I think you're going to win that game. Right? I just kept saying it. I said, I know every coach in America says it at every level of football. Go to middle school football. They're going to give you the cliche, control the line of scrimmage. But I really did feel like this game was going to be decided. Hey, defensively, if Nebraska can control the line of scrimmage and contain the rushing attacks, they're definitely going to win this game. And what's frustrating to me is they did that.
Yep.
They did pretty much, except for the one play on the swing pass or whatever it was, except for one play, they completely contained Caleb Johnson for the most part. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and then they still found a way to lose. That's what kills me, I guess, is just self-inflicted wounds. And defense did a fantastic job. John Bullock had a pretty good game. Again, outside of that one play, he filled gaps amazingly. The linebacking core as a whole, but the defensive line played out of their mind, just controlling that line of scrimmage, spilling everything they needed to spill, and then linebackers doing their job and cleaning up.
Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show joining us. Let's talk about offense. Whether you want to talk about offense that unfortunately wasn't able to find any points in the second half, They left points out there and opportunities, but from the personnel that you know that should be available next year, with what Dana Holgerson tried to do in 3 games, for how guys look different and there was a sense of purpose on offense, what do you think, without adding bodies, what do you think the identity of this offense will be in 2025 if we're going off the line that everybody that is available to come back will come back, and that includes Dana?
That's also a very good question. I would believe that I think maybe it stays similar, but I do think we see a little bit more quick game that we didn't see a lot until Holgerson got there. I'd expect to see more, quick slants, push routes, things like that of just, hey, make the read super easy on the quarterback. And we did see, more of a transition to that. I do think that ultimately, I don't think it's going to be a complete Mike Leach style air raid. I definitely do not expect that, because I do think you still need to run the football in the Big Ten. And if you just look at Dana Holgerson's teams, they're not all, they tend to run the football at least very effectively. So I do think that there's still going to be a decently strong run game. I think Emmett Johnson really showed through the last few games that he is the dude there. He's the dude. I like the things that Dowdell can come in and do as a nice changeup, but Emmett Johnson is the guy that needs to be getting a bulk of the carries, and I think Dana Holgerson sees that. And the biggest thing that I see that Dana Holgerson has come in and done is he's just decided, like, hey, when we have the playmakers, like, we need to find ways to get them the ball. And he's done that very well. So I expect to see more of the same of that, and just making life on Dylan Raiola as easy as possible. That's the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing he's came in and done this year is he's made Dylan Raiola's job a lot easier.
But I look at some of the throws that were there, and it was we had glimpses of what Dylan could be, Ben, on Friday night, and then we had glimpses of what Dylan is right now. And he continued to choose the hard throw over the easier throw. I mean, I think if I'm a wide receiver in this offense with Dana Holgerson coordinating it, I'm in love, because I thought in the last 2 games, the route trees that they have put in are being run better, and guys are even more open than they were even in the Satterfield. It's just, how do you make the transition from Dylan of, you say, hey, help Dylan, take stuff off his plate, but how does Dylan help himself, where, this, Ben, we don't always need the splash play, we just need the solid smart play.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I think the biggest thing is going to be coming into the off season and going in through spring ball, having the consistent, and I mean this not as a shot at anyone, Dana Holgerson is a way more accomplished offensive coordinator than what we've had. I'll put it that way. And I definitely think that he knows. I feel much more comfortable if we can get him locked up, locked in long term, at least for next year, being able to come in, have a whole off season, because it's going to be a big thing, quarterback coaching. We have a lot of film this year. Let's be real. We have a lot of film of guys being open and not being able to get them the ball. There were several plays, like even on that first drive where I know we ended up with 3 points. On that third down, like Thomas Spadoni was wide open, and on that mesh route, he was just sat. He ended up sitting. It was a mesh sit, and he ended up sitting, and we could end up a first down, and who knows what happens after that. And there were just several plays throughout the game that were missed, and that's going to be fairly typical, I guess, of a young quarterback. But I do think just coming in, having the consistency of a very good offensive coordinator who's going to put a focus on making Dylan's job easy, you're going to be able to have the whole offseason and whole spring ball of focusing on getting the ball to your playmakers. Here's where your easy read's going to be. And I think fixing the footwork and the eyes of Dylan Raiola, which have improved over the last 3 weeks, but I do expect that to get a lot better under Dana Holgerson. And I don't know, maybe we'll see some different coaching. I don't know, but I definitely do think that's something that's going to need to get addressed. I agree with you.
What about pocket presence?
Ooh, yeah, that is something that definitely needs to end up being addressed. There were pocket presence, and honestly, just the ball control in that pocket too. I know everyone wants to talk about that last fumble, obviously, because that was the one that ended up costing us. But there were several times throughout that game where just getting hit in the blind side, a lot of times, again, it's bad footwork sometimes too. And it's been a thing throughout the year of the pocket presence not being good. But I also will throw in some ball security on that too, because he fumbled a few balls that game that ended up being recovered by him. But that is definitely something that needs to get worked on. And again, I think good offense coordinator, we get some really good quarterback coaching, and maybe Glenn Thomas is that guy. I just need to see more of it.
Did you find it interesting? So, that's a question moving forward is who has got, who do you marry Dylan to? Do you marry him to Dana? But then, part of the threesome is Glenn Thomas. Did you catch on the sidelines? Dylan came over to the sidelines and Dana wasn't happy with a part of the play that wasn't executed. Glenn Thomas was right there, but it was Dana that was talking to Dylan. So as they all work together, because Dylan needs to be more than just fine. And I think having 13 games under his belt will be ideal, but you've got to learn from the ups and the downs and the good and the bad. There's the other part, as you address the pocket awareness. What about foot speed? Because there's really no element of a quarterback run game. He's not going to be running the triple option, but just to have a hint of that. Is that going to be in the offseason schematic? You try and, he had a couple of quarterback runs on Friday night, which caught everybody by, off guard, and they were successful. But how much can you do that? So will having the element of Dylan's legs be schematic, or is that something in the offseason to work on his foot speed or his body just to get him a tick faster?
I do think that I don't think it'll necessarily be a schematic thing, but I do think it definitely does need to be a little bit of an emphasis. Again, I'm not expecting to come out here and, him start running Lamar Jackson offense, but I do think there are some things you could do. I think on Friday we saw some of those good things I think some of those were schemed up, but I don't think it'll be a schematic thing, but I definitely think it's something that needs improved on just so we have that little bit of an element, if that makes sense. I do think that is kind of a little bit of a game changer. I don't need him to be super fast because I do think that you can be very successful in the Big Ten, as we've seen for, across the league in several years now. You don't necessarily need to have a super mobile running quarterback, but having that ability to be effective, especially if the play does break down, I do think that is something that would be big. And I hate to do the Mahomes comparison, but look at him. He's not really a runner, but he ends up, being able, and he's improved as a runner as his career has gone on too. So I definitely do think there is something there for next season.
Hey, that's one thing that needs to go away in the offseason. It's no more Mahomes Jr., it's Dylan Raiola.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with you. That was just a comparison.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, we're on the same page on that. We've done it for a year. Now you got to be the quarterback at Nebraska. And I know there are mannerisms that will not go away, but just you got to get away from that comparison because, it's used against you. I saw, again, it was one of the Iowa defensive backs was talking about the fumble, and they're like, hey, once we sack Mahomes Jr., he's got to be Dylan Raiola. No more Mahomes Jr. It's got to be Dylan Raiola, and you stand on your own because of the way you play. So we talk about addressing the urgency of moving the quarterback to the next level of development and helping your head coach evolve, because I think they're also attached. Ben, this is the big question from here until Nebraska plays Cincinnati. How do you address the urgency that they have to figure out the doom that is the special teams right now?
Yeah, I 100%. Yes, that has costed us multiple times throughout these last 2 years. This is tough because I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
No, this is a problem. This has cost you.
Yeah.
This has cost you yardage. Iowa's starting field position was the 37. Nebraska's was the 22. You can't live in that world.
100%. That's why I 100% agree with you. What I will say is a change is most definitely needed. I definitely do think there is a change needed. I'm cool with a lot of these guys, so I don't want to come out and say anything crazy. You know what I'm trying to hint at here, I think. But I definitely do think a change is needed. I do think if we can get a good accomplished guy in here, but there just needs to be a focus. The lack of situational awareness is what's kind of gotten me this year, of just guys not being able to execute. Like even that first punt, I think it was the first punt. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I think it was the first punt for Nebraska of the game. There was like 3-4 minutes left in the first quarter. There's just no outside contain. It was when the Iowa returner caught it on his left side, ended up switching, going back to the right side. There was zero outside contain there. It's just little things like that maybe seem, but like, no, that's a huge play. That just completely kind of switched the field position a little bit. And we saw that so many times throughout the season, of just a little thing of some guy not doing their job. And I don't know. I thought the field goal unit was looking good. Then we, field goal snap
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge play. That was a huge play because 13-0 in the way that game was going, where there were hardly any explosive plays, and the way Nebraska defensively was playing, man, 13-0 could have felt like 4-touchdown lead.
100%. Yes, I agree with you. And that's just where it's just been so difficult. And especially in these games that are so tight, and especially these games against Iowa, it's just, man, what frustrates me is that it's Iowa's whole game plan for the last 2 years has just been, we don't need to beat Nebraska. We just need to wait for them to beat themselves. And that is just so frustrating, guys. It's working so effectively for them.
I mean, that was a masterclass. That was a masterclass in Iowa football on Friday night. And that's probably what sucks, is because you beat yourself. Iowa didn't come in and take the game. You gave the game to Iowa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. And that's, I don't know, when I think just kind of throughout this whole year, when we are 5-1, +6 in the turnover margin, now we're finishing the regular season in the negative. I think that kind of explains a lot, as someone who has listened to Coach Rule and his staff speak at clinics and all that, and all the emphasis on ball security and turnover margin and all that. I've given presentations to other coaches about turnover margin, and I've used a lot of the quotes from Rule and a lot of his statistics. I've done that, but I think that kind of shows it. Is 5-1, you're +6. Yeah. Now I think we're at -1. There you go. I think that kind of describes how the season ended up.
Hey, I want to go back to one final thing here before we get you out of here on special teams. Because, Ed Foley has been with Matt Rule for a long time. You're going to have to find a punter. You're going to have to find a long snapper. I think you got your PK1 at least into spring ball, and let Alvano, fight to get his job back. But John Hull really rebounded. And it wasn't his fault on Friday night. That was a horrible snap at the wrong time. But looking at kickoff returns and punt returns, and Nebraska's kind of waved the white flag on punt returns. Is it a philosophy or the wrong guy back there? We saw Barney later in the year. What is it that can be fixed? Because I think it was Drake DeGrassi. He put this out there, and I went and looked this up. Rule, even at Baylor, wasn't big on returning punts and kicks, more of a fair catch guy. Is this a philosophy that it isn't an Ed Foley thing? That's what Matt Rule would prefer, because if you fair catch it, more than likely you're not going to fumble it.
Yeah, no, I definitely do think it's a philosophy thing, especially on the punt returns. There was even some of those where I'm like, dude, we have so much space. Why are we not even trying to get the 5-7 yards they're giving us? Like just free yards there. It's definitely got to be a philosophy thing. And that's what kind of gets me sometimes, is I feel like we're just playing, again, so safe, and we're trying to keep these games so close sometimes. That's another thing that kind of boggled my mind a little bit, is we've now shown that this team is built around they're building a team that's supposed to be able to go win these games 13-10, but they're not doing it. And the team's also not, I don't think this year's team was going to go out there and go win any shootout. So it's just frustrating that we're built to play. It seems like a lot of coaching decisions and philosophies are built around keeping these games close. Let's go win a defensive battle. Let's go win a one-score game. The whole chasing three thing. But then that's just not happening. It's just not. That's what's frustrating to me, I guess, is the way this team is built. And then you have to be able to win games like this. And consistently throughout the year, you lost them.
How do you build a roster that wins these games?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I definitely do think very good question. I do think having a very strong running game, but we kind of talked about it a little bit, having a strong special teams is a huge part of this. How many games over that the last 2 years that we've lost, have we been able to directly say there was 1, 2, or even more special teams play that directly affected the game result, right? So I definitely think, to me, the biggest part was you got to have one of the best special teams unit in college football, and I don't know how. So we're a long way from that. That's what I'll say.
Do you think that could, real quick here, do you think that could change? Because there are some younger guys that either redshirted or didn't play much that have a special teams background in the return game. Do you think that could factor in an improvement next year and maybe a change in the strategy if you have talented guys that could hit their head on the goalpost on one kick?
Yes, I definitely do think that is something that could change. I hope it does change. And I really hope that there's just a mega, I know every coach says it, but it's not just an emphasis on special teams. It's an emphasis on having smart football players, having your players know the situation, know their goddamn job, if that makes sense. So I definitely do think it is possible, and I'm really hoping for it because I do think if this team had a strong special teams unit going forward, it could be a force to be reckoned with. I really do truly believe that. It's just we're so far away from being there. It's just hard to even fathom that right now.
I think the special teams on a football program is a direct reflection on the head coach.
I've heard that, and I first I was kind of hesitant on it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at other programs. Kind of with you on that now.
Hey, what do you have coming up this week?
We're going to put out a blog on nbnrpodcast.com, just recapping the season, kind of my thoughts. If you go there, then we're going to have the BA Coaches Show coming out first thing tomorrow morning, talking about the Iowa game. And I'll probably put out a bonus episode later this week, just kind of recapping the year.
Hey, fantastic. I always enjoy the conversation, my friend.
Yes, you as well, Gary. Appreciate it.